Got it.
Well, hello again, everybody. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever in the world you are. And welcome to Solutions with Aquarius Rising Australia and our beautiful Gabby and Rachel. Hello, ladies. You're looking gorgeous as always. How are you on this wonderful, is it Wednesday today already? My word. Yeah.
I know.
Good, thank
really
you, darling.
good. Thank you for having us as always.
Absolutely. It's just wonderful. I mean, we're having some off-air chats about the topics that we want to really address today, which I fully agree with boundaries and forgiveness, because the way I see it, you can't have one without the other and the other without the one. So it's something that goes so hand in hand, and understanding boundaries and the environment in which we live in and how important that is for us to say no at some point and take a different path or open our minds to a different perspective, understanding, you know, and then we can start applying some of the spiritual teachings, because more than anything, it's the application of the spiritual teachings that we have to fine-tune ourselves to and start living, in my opinion. So welcome to you two. Very excited to have you again. How are you, Rachel?
I'm good. Yeah, quite relaxed. Had a big weight lifted off my shoulders recently, so very happy.
So beautiful.
Yeah. Well, Gabs, I don't know, did you want to start with
Sure. Yeah. So talking about boundaries and forgiveness, it immediately makes me think of, you know, our root chakra and how that is all about safety. It's all about our real primal needs, like having protection, you know, having what you need around you, having that security. And sexual trauma is obviously a violation of that area of your body and really breaking all of those things down. So for a lot of survivors, you know, we're put into, you know, fight or flight and really just being, I guess, like over aware, trying to overcompensate and really just survive the situation we're going through, especially when it's ongoing abuse. We can become really hyper vigilant of what's happening in the environment around us, which can have a very negative effect on your body in the long term, because it's just running constantly in this massive level of anxiety. So yeah, I definitely found and still find, like, if I feel any sort of triggers or traumas to do with my history coming up, that focusing on my root chakra and really earthing and grounding is like such a massive way to just manage those energies as they're coming up, etc. as well. And you know, there's a lot of research that the CIA has done with the MK Ultra programs, etc. too, and that's all about how, you know, they're quite aware through, you know, traumatizing that particular chakra point, your root chakra, and creating trauma there. It actually takes people into this endless cycle of trauma. So they're really deprived of, you know, that following forward with their mission on Earth. Just having like a clear sense of their own identity, and they're stuck in this cycle of, you know, either being the victim, being the rescuer, which is really common for survivors as well. I have to put my hand up for that one as well. Like, you know, just trying to save everyone else rather than focus on your own traumas, or, you know, even becoming the abuser. So they're kind of the three things that cycle can lead into. And what we really want to do is, you know, focus on our root chakra, focusing on healing that area and the trauma that's being done to it, so we can actually step back and become the observer. And I know for myself, you know, it was really important to obviously have that boundary with the perpetrator, because I was stalked for some period of time afterwards, and they were showing up in my life at random times over many years, which would just completely restart all the trauma for me. And it was really important for me to have that boundary of being away from that person completely. And that actually meant moving states for me. And that was a massive opportunity for growth as well, because I was away from that story. I was away from, even family members that maybe hadn't been as supportive as I would have liked, or honoured my experience. And I just got to kind of rewrite myself over again. So that was a really important part of putting up a boundary. And speaking of, the people supporting your story, etc., I also found it really important to put up boundaries with the people that, were even being abusive about the story, because I had people like saying it didn't happen. I guess that would have really come down to probably their own unhealed trauma, which was around the same thing, sexual abuse in their life. And it is so intergenerational, unfortunately, as we know. And that, you can recognize their pain and their things that they're working through. But if you want to heal and you want to really focus on finding your identity and moving forward after that kind of trauma, it's really important to put the boundaries around yourself so you're in that safe place and you can heal. And I know when I moved to Melbourne, which was in my mid-20s, I just took off. It was literally like a new lease on life, because I was able to move away from family members that hadn't been supportive, had denied my trauma, and probably even, me being able to speak about that kind of thing, and really just start again. So yeah, boundaries are massive, absolutely massive. And I think that was really the first step. And then, a few years later, I was like, yeah, absolutely.
I want to just maybe add something to that, because I think what is really important for maybe our viewers to understand is how a damaged root chakra manifests physically in your life. So for me, I just want to say I love also, one of the programs I run is going into these energy centers in the body on a much deeper level. And for sure, I mean, if we look at the root chakra, it really is what it says. Tip of the coccyx, and has that root like a tree that spreads out and connects and grounds you and anchors you and all of these things, But many people who've experienced trauma, it's like that root is severed. And you can imagine the trees kind of falling over. So it distorts the energy completely, which puts out a very fragmented vibration, so to speak. So now for me as well, it's about understanding it's the child's developmental age of 0 to 8 years old, when the child is most dependent on its family to feed it, clothe it, make sure it has a warm, safe space, to love it, to protect it, to give it the foundation where the roots are growing. So when a child doesn't have that in those areas, it obviously makes for a very unsafe space. So I think what's important is also sexual abuse would be a big one there. But so would physical abuse be. So would abandonment be. So would, let's say, parents running away or dying at an early age or being murdered or whatever. There's some horror stories out there. So it's about understanding how safe you felt in that environment as a child. Were you being stalked? Were you being hit? Were you being bullied? Were you being thrown out the house? Did your mother leave, or your father? Every person's story is relative to them. So I think it's important just so people can apply whatever it is, because this is the most important chakra. It's the chakra, the rock on which the others rest. It's what gives it your stability and your security. And, and as you're saying as well, obviously your societies, then you start going to school or churches or whatever, you start making group friends. Your family is your support. And when that's not there, it creates a very different reality for the person. And I think it's for I think everyone has their own story type, regarding that. And what I'm saying is as well, is just, even if you haven't had hectic trauma in your life, you may have experienced it on a different level, such as your parents getting a divorce, and that affected you in lots of relationship areas in your life, for example. You know, I think it's amazing to know that we can actually heal it, right?
Absolutely. That was a beautiful analogy with the tree. I just think that's so powerful that it's like your roots have been taken away. And it's certainly how it feels when your base chakra is out of balance. You're just like, things are just all over the shop. You're scattered, you're like probably going through a bit of anxiety, you can't focus. So you just feel ungrounded. So to remedy that is all the things that we do to ground. So, you know, being out in nature, going barefoot on the grass, you know, moving your body, focusing on your breathing.
Rolling in the mud.
Yeah, as a kid, I loved getting in the mud, getting dirty, getting out in nature, getting with the animals as well. Like, you know, I was always like
out there and touching and physical in nature and enjoying, just having fun, you know, rolling in the mud. Love that as well. We lived in a desert area growing up, so we never had much rain, but boy, when it rained, did we roll in that mud. It was amazing.
Oh, I can't say I've got into that, girls. I'm a Virgo. Dirt. No.
So am I. I'm a Virgo too.
So dirty.
I'm the tomboy version.
Good on you, darling. Good on you. Maybe that's what I needed. Maybe I needed to roll in the mud. Maybe that's something I need to do.
I think you should try it at the very least. Don't knock it till you've tried it, right?
It's interesting what you're saying about, you know, that shock to that area is really important. It's not just so when you take things like sodomy and rape of a small child, a lot of people just assume that it's about pleasure for the abuser or some sort of sadistic thing that they're doing, but there's actually a ritualistic reason behind it. So for the Freemasons, again, they believe if you are to sodomize a child before the age of 3, you open them up psychically. So it's something to do with that kundalini. I don't know a lot about the kundalini, but it's something about opening up those areas through vasovagal shock, or the shock to that particular nerve. But again, like you've just been describing, it unroots that person permanently, but it's not permanent. It can unroot them permanently, but you can also heal it. So one thing that exactly, you can grow those roots back down. One beautiful person that I love very much told me once that, you know, the human body replaces every cell every 10 years. Every cell in your body has been replaced. So there's not a single cell in my body right now that was defiled when I was a child.
I love that.
And I've done so much work with chakra healing and energy healing that I don't believe that I have that damage anymore. I feel that is now gone. But that took, I mean, there was even surgeries that had to take place in order for parts of the body that were so damaged to be healed. But I'm lucky I'm at that point now where that's not a problem anymore. It's no longer an issue. But I was thinking while you're talking, you know, there's other things that people do without even realizing what they're doing is they're shocking that area. So, you know, our parents' generation, and possibly some of us as well, when we've been chastised, have been placed over the parents' legs and slapped on the bum in that area. So that's another kind of shock. And no, it's not ritualistic. Well, I guess it could be because it's a weird societal thing to do. But what a creepy thing to do to a child. So the child's trying to learn what's right and wrong, and you place them in a very physically close spot to your genitalia and smack them on the bum. I mean, really? The whole parenting style has to be really reconsidered. Thank God nowadays it's a bit more, you know, totally the other way around. And, you know, if you were to do that, you would probably get reported. But it's just another example of how children are violated. It's again, it's always going for that area to uproot them.
And instilling fear. And instilling fear and instilling pain.
Yeah.
So this, you know, just on a psychological issue, you know, and it's so true. I've never thought about that, but yet I'm sitting here thinking, well, that's so obvious.
Yeah. poor little loves.
And even the child feeling so helpless because they're off the ground, they can't run away. Yeah, how traumatic.
And being placed, you know, on the lap is usually a loving thing, but you're upside down in the opposite position,
inverted, isn't it? Yeah.
Being shocked.
Wow.
Yeah, I bet we can guess who thought of that one.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Wow. That's so true. Good grief. So it's this, to me, that would even be trauma bonding, actually.
Yeah.
Because as you say, it's on the lap, and it really is the reverse of each other. So love and pain, love and fear go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And it's just another one of those typical things that you learn from your parents and then go down. Thank God I didn't do that with my kids, but I can see, you know, a lot of people would do it without even realizing that it was the wrong thing to do because their parents did it to them. So, you know, it just goes down, and it just goes intergenerational constant, you know, goes down the line because people aren't really thinking about what they're doing. They're just doing it automatically.
Yeah, like they're not thinking. Yeah, they're not thinking. And it really goes to show how conscious we have to be of like all the programming around us, and like, you know, be constantly putting everything on the table and evaluating it, because we really have been born into such an inverted society at this point in time.
Yeah, and you know, but the beauty about this is you know, that whole regrowing your roots type thing. You know, it brings to mind the word compassion as well, but it's not necessarily initially showing compassion to the person that violated you. It is showing compassion to yourself for your emotions. So it's really about loving yourself, taking care of yourself, nurturing yourself, because generally when you're in this place of recognition now, you're quite cognitive. So you're probably an adult that's maybe got very immature emotional behavior or whatever, as most of us do, all of us do, I think, from time to time, react very immaturely to things. So it really is about understanding that about yourself as well, you know, and understanding that just to love yourself and your emotions and sit with yourself and heal that wound within you. And when that wound in you is healed through whatever journey you need to take, whether it's seeing a healer or being in nature or whatever it is that works for you, you know, then we're able to actually recognize the wounds in others and understand the place that they too projected from. So everyone who's in this shitty place projects from a place of pain. So whether you're the victim or the villain, and that's what the whole root chakra is about as well. It's that fight or flight syndrome. So you're either going to run like hell, or you're going to turn around and just fists are going to fly and, you know, whatever. So you instill fear because it's all about fear. It's the chakra of fear as well. So it's about understanding what it is. And it's true, because you either then get, you know, where it's about your skeletal area as well, the bones in your body, you know, and your physical appearance, because it's physical to earth. So it's your body. And how prepared are you in your body to either run or take action? So I think it's important that we can strive to get to that place of just being still and healing our own wounds, which is the connection or the lack thereof. You know, nowadays we've got so many stay connected, stay connected, you know, to this cell phone company or that internet provider or whatever. Yet it's not the connection, it's the connection to the self we're seeking. And that's what the root chakra is about. So to go through that discomfort, to go through the sadness, to deal with whatever you need to deal with without running away, and then keep attracting everyone else in your path that's running away from their problems as well. And you kind of end up just reflecting it to each other all the time, right? So, yeah. And then I think a very different perspective arises. we start viewing the world differently and people. And the ones that we then attract around us, I think.
So true. We've really been brought up in such a culture of having to do something, of doing. And that was my, body breaking in the end, was like, constantly doing things. And it really is that journey, through the root chakra, through earthing, of just coming back to yourself and just being. And to what you were just saying before, Shanti, like about, creating that space, like with the boundaries, that's so important to, have that space around you where you've got an opportunity to heal. And, I had to look within myself and, look at other people's behavior that was really triggering me, like family members not giving me the time or wanting to hear, about what had actually happened, because of, I guess they felt implicated, etc., or were still dealing with their own trauma. I had to look at myself and see where was I not giving myself the space to heal, so they were actually reflecting that I hadn't created these really strong boundaries. And like, for me, that meant moving states, because it was just like, let's just get out of this situation. And as soon as I did that, my body was able to just process so much more and release. Just so much that had been stuck for so many years before that. So it's amazing what just, creating those boundaries and putting this beautiful space of compassion for yourself. It is really, taking care of yourself, honoring your journey, and honoring your suffering so you can release it finally.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of societal pressure to look after your family members. But if they're not looking after you back, but you still feel that pressure, there's no chance of you ever actually healing from the sort of abuses that we're talking about tonight. So, there comes a time where you have to put yourself first, no matter what society expects of you, no matter how old your parents might be, or other family members, whatever their needs might be. If you can't heal with them around, you can let them go. It doesn't have to be forever, but at least until you've healed yourself enough to be able to let them back in. And for some people, that means they never will be able to let that person back in, but for others, they can. I think there's so much pressure on the victim or the survivors to do everything right, and to be, just to suck it up, basically, just suck it up and move on with it, because it's too hard for the rest of the family to do it, because it's so ugly. Get over it. The
little dirty family secret that just gets locked away. And doesn't
pretty much every family has it.
I know. Wow. Yeah, it really is.
Statistics are horrific.
And
the statistics on perpetrators too having been abused, I mean, that is so high. I can't remember the exact percentage. It's astounding. Like, it's in the 90% of people, that end up being perpetrators have been abused as children. If they're sexual abusers, they've been abused as children. Wonderful woman called Frida Briggs, who's passed, did say, she was a great advocate for child abuse victims. She did say that we just need one generation who have not been abused to cut out a lot of this. If we could just get one generation, and I think we're on the brink of that. I think that, maybe Absolutely. The children that are being born now, because everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, well, certainly in my circles, they're very aware of this. You get a skewed perspective.
I know, right?
I feel that there's that tipping point has been passed, and we've got enough people now who are aware of what's going on. They know about these suppression orders. They know about all of this stuff. So, we've got that possibility of this next generation coming through. That's if, people aren't all sterilised and they can actually bring more children in. That's another issue. Maybe that's part of the reason why we're going through this other stuff at the moment.
It's not, isn't it?
I think when each and every person starts taking exactly the type of, and that's what I say is taking responsibility, to recognize we all have our wounds. So rather than inflicting our frustrations on someone else, if we find ourselves doing that or being on the receiving end of that, then that's when it's a good time to say, hang on, let me just stop here and let me reflect. on what I'm really, really feeling. You know, we all have to begin somewhere. If you're constantly finding yourself in fights and arguments and bullying tactics and what have you with another, stop. You're playing out the victim-villain role, and then start with reflecting. And the minute we stop and say, yes, I'm listening, it's amazing what you start hearing. It's like literally switching off that babbling, and then you're given guidance. It's like an inner guidance. People come to you, suddenly you find the right book, or you read something in the Bible that works for you in that moment, or whatever it is, you know. So it's kind of like we start listening with a different language, the language of spirit, if that makes sense. It's not a verbal nonsense going on in your ears and in your mind anymore. It's just suddenly, and that's where the roots grow. And I always say, when the roots grow deep, there's no need to fear the wind. So as the roots grow deep, you know, the leaves, and, you know, we can have our storms, of course. We're human beings on earth, but we trust now, and we have a different set of tools we're working with, you know, which brings in a different perspective. And, you know, Rachel, is what you were saying about the perpetrators as well, is like, we know from many of our conversations, especially with Jessie as well, these people that are perpetrating generally have been the victims of exactly what they're dishing out.
Sure.
So it's I mean, if it's a child, yes, absolutely, we're going to forgive the child. Why is it so much harder for us to forgive the adult? Because that child is not healed yet.
Yeah.
You know, that adult in this huge big body, but has got obviously so much inner pain. And yes, have they sold out? I do believe that.
Yeah.
But is it our place to judge?
Absolutely.
That's the question. Yeah.
And you look at our detention centres, our prisons, mental, I don't know what you would call them, but asylums, pretty much. So many of the people that are in those, and also people that are suffering with addictions, are trauma survivors, like from their childhood. You know, and these are people that, you know, really get shunned by society, and, you know, you're a criminal, you're an addict, you know, and it's like they've got that child inside of them that maybe they didn't have the space, they couldn't get away from their abuser, maybe they didn't find the tools to heal ever. It's really sad looking at how broken society is. But again, I feel like that is slowly changing as people, as the awareness grows of how damaging child sexual abuse is. And it certainly is, like, I know there's even a court, to put it like a way that people that have received a charge in court, if they are a survivor of child sexual abuse in a number of states, they can apply for a reduction of sentence for that reason. So, I mean, it's not ideal, but they're obviously recognising the implications that abuse has on people and the decisions that they make as well. It's still a long way to go, but it's a start, I guess, too.
Yeah, and again, you know, the vast majority of people incarcerated were sexually abused as children. The vast majority of people in the porn industry were sexually abused as children. So it's perpetrating and propagating those industries, which make a huge amount of money, massive amount of money. And again, that's that, you know, we're living in Babylon. That's what's happened. It's everything's been inverted, and the main ways of making money, or the biggest industries, are these ones that are based around this terrible abuse.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, you can see why people would do that, because it just makes them more money, and money makes the world go round. Yeah, it's hard to believe. And, you know, you hear these perpetrators say, like often people say things like, oh, you know, it's all right to hit your kids because I was hit as a child and I'm okay, but they're not. They just say that they are. They think that they are. And perpetrators are doing the same thing. Oh, well, I was abused, but I'm okay. Not thinking about the fact that the only reason why they are abusing is because they were sexually awoken at a very early age. And that seems to skew the mind of these perpetrators to be attracted to children for some reason. I don't really understand the full psychology of it, but there's you know, there's full theories around this whole thing that you know, because they're woken up at 3 or 4, they've been attracted to 3 or 4 year olds. Yeah. So any perpetrators watching, I doubt there would be any, but unless they're trolls, have a look at why you're attracted to children and why were you abused at that time. You might have an aha moment.
Yeah,
that's very true.
Cycles, isn't it? Cycles of trauma and just generational abuse, which I really feel are coming to a close. Like so many people are doing the work, and yeah, just learning and supporting others, and the awareness is getting out there finally. So there's a lot of hope for what the future will be, that's for sure, compared to I think how dark it's been previously.
Yeah, it certainly can't get any darker, can it? Can it? I don't think so.
We've hit rock bottom, yeah. Like you said, we're in the middle of Babylon's collapse at the moment. Like, yeah.
That brings us on to the next line of conversation that we're wanting to get to grips with today is forgiveness. And I think forgiveness is I think love is a very abused word. I think forgiveness is an abused word too, you know. So I think it's very difficult to ask many survivors of horrific abuse to forgive your perpetrator if I think they haven't done some deep soul searching. So I'd be interested to hear what you ladies, I was about to say guys, you're not guys, girls, have to say about forgiveness and maybe your experience around it that can work.
Do you want to go first, Rachel? Because you have a beautiful story about just recently as well.
Yeah, it was quite profound. So, I mean, my father, my main abuser was my father, and he died in 2017. And I did a lot of work between then and now, proving things to prove myself correct, and had a lot of help from trolls who pushed and pushed and pushed. And so I pushed myself to get the evidence out there. So with regards to what I was talking to Chantelle about before we started the interview today, I was trafficked through tunnels as a child, and I've proven the existence of the tunnels in the bunker, in particular bunker underneath my father's property, where I was abused and taken through. That whole process of having proven all of those things, given the series of interviews that I've given, and I'm not saying that every person who's gone through this has to do it this publicly. It's probably not the best way to do it, but that's the way I've done it. It took me through all those different levels of, you know, I was angry first, you know, all those levels of grief and of having gone through all of those processes. I came to a point where I felt that I wasn't progressing. I felt that, and this is why being invited on this channel was so important, because I felt like every time I was in an interview, all I was really doing was rehashing what I'd gone through. And I felt that I was actually traumatizing other people by telling people my story, which was certainly not what I ever intended to do. I know that it had to get out there, but I'm not someone who just wants to go around and make people feel uncomfortable. And so I sort of made this decision. I want to do healing work, and obviously there was something I had to let go before that was actually going to work, and I didn't even realize it. But this whole series of events occurred. For years, healers and psychics have said to me since my father died, "Have you forgiven him?" No. And then Chantelle, you actually said that to me, and I kept saying it to them. You know, I'm not ready. No, because I wanted to hang on to that anger, and I think I needed to have the impetus plus the help of the trolls and the other abusers that have been attacking. I needed that to push and push and push, and gee, that's been an amazing force that's pushed me, and I feel so glad now that I had all of that pressure, because I think it would be so much easier just to go and hide under my bedclothes and sleep all the time, or sit in the depression, or whatever else, you know, I might have done if I hadn't been pushed to get all that stuff out. So it came to a point where I am psychic. I was opened up psychically as a child and used in that way through the MK Ultra program. And I was in one of my favorite places recently, and It's a convergence of ley lines, quite amazing. Been photographing this place for a long time, and I actually, in one of the photographs, I looked at it afterwards, and I've had this experience before. I've taken photographs and I've seen the most amazing apparitions in the photographs, and I've actually been able to show that to other people, and they've gone, oh my God, that's freaky. This was really freaky. So it was my father's face looking at me through this ley line. And for people who want to say it's schizophrenic or whatever, no, I've been assessed and I'm not schizophrenic. This is my impression. So pareidolia, people might like to call it pareidolia, but for those that don't believe in this stuff, and that's easier for them to make that, but gee, it's an uncanny reproduction of his face at any rate. And I knew in that moment when I saw that photograph after I'd taken it, because it's interesting, these apparitions seem to show themselves more clearly through the lens than they do physically. So I'll often get home after taking these photographs and think, oh my God, where did that come from? I knew the look that he was giving me was a reminder of what we had decided on a soul level before we came down here to be father and daughter, Max and Rachel, perpetrator and victim, that I was going to at some point forgive him. And that was going to allow him from his side, on the other side, because this was only after he had died that this covenant had been made, that after he died, I would be doing this process would occur, and he would be able to work on his side then to undo the damage. And then uncannily went and saw a psychic friend of mine. She asked me that question. So this apparition appeared in December. I had a dream about him on a Thursday, the following Tuesday. And again, I wasn't frightened of him in the dream. So that was on a Thursday. On the Tuesday, I saw the psychic friend. She said, have you forgiven him yet? It's like, oh, for God's sake. I said, okay, I'll try. And I did try, but it wasn't really successful because I was still angry. Then Shanti interviewed me on the Wednesday night. Yeah. And asked me the very important question, do you think you could ever forgive him? And I said something along the lines of, oh, you know, on a soul level, maybe, on a human level, never, because I was still like, nah, never. I'm never going to forgive him because I wanted to be angry. And then I had a session with Shanti, and I don't know how you did it, darling, but the way that you led me through and asked me the right questions at the right time in the perfect pivotal moment, I suddenly was able to do it. No. So I can't describe the relief. So it wasn't that I was annoyed afterwards that I'd done that because, you know, suddenly I couldn't hang on to the anger anymore. It was like, oh, thank God I've let go of that anger because I didn't realize what it was doing to me. And I literally felt like a sack of potatoes had been taken off my shoulders. And I still feel that. I still feel lighter. And again, it's really interesting. Just prior to all of that happening, the last few months, I have been trying to accept and acknowledge my happiness because I don't think I ever was truly happy. I had been coming to a point of being afraid even to say that I was happy because, oh my God, who's going to hear that? And who's going to then try and bring me down, destroy me, do whatever. So I'm even saying this in an interview and saying it out loud because even if somebody attacks me now, I don't think it's really going to make any difference. I could be in a tunnel and I could be underground somewhere and locked up, and I think I would still be able to be happy because I have achieved and I'm fulfilled and I've achieved what I've come here to do and I'm happy. So I'll put it out there. So that was my process of forgiveness. It wasn't forgiving anything he had done. It is not forgiving any of the children that he murdered. It's not forgiving any other perpetrator for what they are doing. It is allowing myself to let go of all of the anger and the hatred and the hurt and releasing myself from it.
Wow.
Beautiful. Such a beautiful completion, isn't it?
It is.
So profound and so powerful, really. That's amazing.
And I think that for those that struggle with that sort of thing, it's not something I think that people necessarily should do if the perpetrator is still alive, because there's always that impetus. If they are still alive and you're still angry, you might be able to stop them from hurting others. But that I'm not saying that you can't forgive them while they're still alive. I'm just thinking for me, I couldn't do that. I don't think. I don't know. Didn't think I could forgive him either. But I'm not at that point. I'm still very keen and very determined that the people that abuse me who are still alive will see justice in this lifetime. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that is a very healthy place. If There's no other word for you to be in. Very healthy. And it doesn't mean, you know, forgiveness doesn't mean that it's okay what you've done. And as you say, it's setting yourself free. It's releasing the anger, the pain, all of those really crappy emotions that have been weighing you down, and kept you stuck in a place. So that's why I say it's not our place to judge what should happen to him, you know? And I think anyone else, doesn't mean they don't need to take responsibility. Of course, you know, they need to be accountable for their actions. I fully agree with that. But it's not about becoming the vigilante and going out there, or even the spiritual vigilante, and going out there and whacking whatever it is you need to be whacking in the ethos, or whatever it is you think you need to be whacking in the ethos on that behalf. You know, you don't need to do that. You just need to reach that point of wisdom, because that really is what it is, which is when you've enabled yourself to be released from something so hectic, really.
And I was just thinking with your story, Rachel, as well, like how beautiful is it that through this forgiveness, it's like you've found almost another level of your mission, like another stepping stone is opening up into the healing. And, you know, it's like really, you know, taking it from, you know, the awareness and, you know, raising people's understanding of this evil, which is really 3D and 4D, like now going into the 5D of like healing, you know, creating this beautiful level of consciousness that people can come together and support each other. So that's amazing that that's cleared so much for you too.
Yeah. It's a lot more effective when you don't have this enormous weight you're carrying around and dragging around with you.
Yeah. Look.
I love that we try though.
Gotta just make sure we can carry as much as what we can, right? Prove how strong we are.
I guess when it's been around for so long as well, you know, like it becomes part of you to a degree too, like, you know, absolutely. So you must feel so different, so light.
Yes, that's the thing. The motivations have changed as well. So, you know, the motivation to get these people, to bring them down, it's different. It's a different feeling. They've brought themselves down. They are their own worst enemies. I can't imagine what they must be going through. I don't have any guilt. You know, I can't imagine what it'd be like to live like that. It must be dreadful. I mean, this is assuming that they have any conscience.
Yeah.
I think they must have some. There must be
on
something.
Some level,
it's not real conscience. It must be a fear of being caught and a fear of people like me bringing attention to this stuff. So that must be horrible for them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fear in those energies. Whether they've got a conscience or not, they carry fear. They live in fear all the time, all the time. There's some kind of fear or anxiety or health issue or something gnawing all the time.
Yeah. And I feel that's why they are so horrific in their abuse of power and control of whatever they can get their hands on, whether it's children, young adults, anyone vulnerable, is because of that fear. You know, like that's their band-aid to make themselves feel better for a little while.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. A friend of mine, Kat Waters, did an interview recently with a gentleman called Kyriakou. I can't remember if it's John or Chris Kyriakou. And he was just talking about, because he'd spent some time, he was a whistleblower, had spent some time in jail for daring to whistleblow. And the inmates, the pedophiles in jail, they just live in perpetual fear. But they can't acknowledge that they've done the wrong thing, though, because the recidivism rate is just so high. They'll get out and they'll just do it again, abuse some other child again, and then get put back in. But you got to wonder at some point, you know, how are we going to deal with all of these people? I mean, all of these indictments that are being unsealed, all of these people that are going to be ending up in institutions. How do we fix it? Is the soul at that level redeemable? there's got to be a way. I don't know how that might be. I've heard other people talk about, you know, possible solutions. I think a lot of people get caught up in the, you know, you've got to castrate them and you've got to do this, or you chemically castrate them, or you do that, and it's very violent. And again, that's the anger, and that's that, you know, wanting to get even with these people. But when you consider that they've been abused as well, I'm not sure what the solution is. I've been racking my brain for 15 years trying to think, you know, how do you deal with all of that? And maybe this is why governments and, well, no, I'm giving them too much credit, but, you know, you can see how certain people in society who have the ability to put these people away don't do it because there's just so many of them. But it's the time has come that there has to be a solution, and we've got to find that.
Yeah,
I honestly think that, and where we're sitting now, because I don't think we are there yet, we're not seeing the solution.
No.
So I really think that the solution is not necessarily a violent one. So I think, honestly, the more of us who raise our frequency and shed light from a different perspective, these things have a way of changing of themselves. It's like, you know, when releasing the perpetrator in the forgiveness, in the whole process, because it's not, oh, I've got to forgive so and so. It's I'm setting myself free from whatever I was not forgiving for. So it kind of fixes itself, like what you're going through now. It's like suddenly you have a different motivation to do things, new creative ideas, being inspired with a whole lot of other things. That, I think, happens with everyone.
Yes, I think we're sort of, you know, because of the way things have been and like all the lies around us, we're really caught up in looking for a 3D solution to it, like lock them all up, put them all in together, let it all happen. Whereas really what is happening at the moment is there's a mass rise in people waking up to this evil, like, you know, which is lifting the frequency as people actually have the knowledge inside of them. And just that awareness of a mass amount of society will actually start changing the whole, because we're all connected anyway. And it's already happening in individual families. You know, survivors are raising children that haven't been abused. They're not going to go out and abuse other children. They're likely to, because of what their parents have experienced, to go out and become healers, advocates, leaders in this new society. So like, I'm just like, yeah, we need like to lock them up. But then you're like, it's actually already flowing, like this really feminine force of, you know, the energies that are rising at the moment. The Christ consciousness is actually just flowing through and breaking all these old knots and systems. So I think we kind of have to let go a little bit of, you know, how's it going to look? It's already underway, as hard as that is, because sometimes I hear a story and I'm just like, lock them up now. Go between the two.
I agree. And I think a lot of these really negative forces kind of have a way of self-destructing.
Yeah, they'll choose to leave.
Yeah,
absolutely. They won't be able to survive here anymore.
It's going to be also, I feel, sorry, I'm just checking a message. For a moment, it said our live stream is bombed out, but it hasn't. But I think that, I really think it's going to happen as it's going to. A lot of these guys are going to be self-destructing. I think there will definitely be those that have their fragment of consciousness that will cross the bridge. We need those. We need those whistleblowers. We need those people in the know-how, because they're the ones that know the system. And I think a lot of light workers are actually spying there, you know, and now going to be coming over. That's what I think. Call it a
point. Not just a frequency lift, it's also those that have done those dreadful things may want to redeem themselves by ratting out the others, or showing the places where these tunnels are, where these children have been abused. Truth can be an incredible force.
Truth sets us free. That's it.
It gives us a good slap first, and then it sets us free.
Yeah.
Indeed. Ladies, it's been amazing. Thank you so much for your precious time and your wonderful company. And I really look forward to seeing you back in 2 weeks' time. But before we bid you both beautiful farewells, is there anything you'd like to maybe close off with? Gab, starting with you.
Yeah, like just talking about the boundaries and the root chakra. I think people get so caught up in like, how to do it, like who do I get help from? What do I need to read? And I think the biggest journey for me was just start listening to my body again. And I just had this guidance at the time when I'd moved over to Victoria in my 20s, and it was like, take care of your body like it's your pet, like it's your animal. And at first I was like, oh my God, what is the universe talking to me about? But, I've been so tough on myself. Like, I had all this anger that kept me going, and I wasn't going to fail, and I wasn't going to let this trauma like knock me down. But I didn't actually stop and take care of myself, listen to my body when it was tired, listen to what was going on. So I think, if we can have that compassion and, especially while you're healing, but at any time, all the time, just to listen to our body and literally feed it thoughts, feed it, good things, good music, good food, good water, like you would want to do for your pet, like sometimes that just little bit of care that you can invest in yourself is such a big thing to get things rolling. So, keep it simple, start with little things, and it just builds from there.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. And I'll just say everything happens at the right time. You can't push anything. I don't entertain regrets, because if I hadn't had the experience that I had, I wouldn't be where I am now and who I am now. So I always, that's just, I just wanted to say, no one can force you to forgive anybody. You will know when the right time comes, and it would just happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
So true.
And on those wise words, I say thank you again. It's been amazing. Really enjoyed having you two beautiful ladies here. So see you back in 2 weeks. And for those of you who haven't given us a like, a share, and a subscribe already, please do. Lots of solutions here. And I wish you a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful fortnight. And we'll catch you back very, very soon.